Welcome to another Bible study. We are in the book of Revelation, and we've been unveiling some prophetic information that has really been eye-opening. So thanks so much for joining on in another Bible study here at Influence Church. Today we are continuing into chapters 6 and 7 in the book of Revelation, and we're going to be opening the 7 seals. This is very important. This is where we get into that 4 horsemen of the end time that you see sometimes, that you've maybe seen in a movie, that you've heard of. That sounds scary, and it is scary, but we are going to delve into this and see what does it mean, when it's going to happen. Are we there yet? Are we about to be there? We're going to answer these questions in this study tonight. If you haven't done it as yet, why not click that share button so that somebody that you know can join on in this video, as well as if you've missed any of our previous studies, you can go to our YouTube channel, click the videos tab, and you can rewatch any of those previous studies, especially part 1 and part 2 of the book of Revelation. We started off by speaking about the 7 churches, and these 7 churches, we said, was not prophetic, but it was the 7 churches that existed in Asia at the time that John was writing. Then we moved into last week where we spoke about who is worthy to open the 7 scrolls. We got a picture of what heaven looks like. We were able to understand what the horns that are around Jesus, what those horns represent in terms of the kingdoms that Jesus will overthrow, in terms of the satanic kingdoms that he will overcome. And now we're moving into part 3. We're moving into chapters 6 and 7. So grab a notepad to write with, and you're going to want to also get your Bible. And let's go to Revelation chapter 6. Now, as we recall from our previous studies, we know that the author of the book of Revelation is John. That's correct. We know that John wrote the book of Revelation around 90 AD. That's correct as well. And where did he write it? He wrote it on the Isle of Patmos. That's correct as well. You're an excellent student. So let's continue and let's switch over to our presentation. So we're speaking about the 7 seals tonight. And initially, I was only going to cover chapter 6, but I said to myself, hey, you all are excellent students. You all are brilliant. You guys can handle chapter 6 and 7. Let me not try to water it down too much, but let me give you the information. So we're going through chapters 6 and 7 this evening. So let's start in chapter 6. And we want to speak about the first verse, where John now, he shifts over to where they're ready to open the seal. We've understood that Jesus is the only one that is worthy to open the seal. And it says in verse 1 of Revelation chapter 6, now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals. Now remember, who was worthy? The Lamb, and it represented Jesus Christ. Jesus was the only one worthy enough of opening the seals, which speaks volumes of the deity of Jesus Christ, right? He's the only one worthy to open the seal. So he's about to open the first seal, and John is saying here, I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a voice like thunder, come and see. Now, remember we spoke about these 4 living creatures. These are the creatures that surround the throne room of God, giving worship unto God. And we have an hypothesis that possibly these 4 living creatures were the creatures that replaced Lucifer, who was that angel that gave worship unto God. So now we have these 4 living creatures that are here surrounding the throne of God the Father and giving worship unto him. So one of them shouts out to John and say, come and see, right? And John is so privileged that he gets to see prophetic information. Now, what I want you to know as we get into chapter 6 and 7, and even as we go throughout the rest of the book of Revelation, what we're going to see is, first, we're going to see John see what happens in heaven. That's what we're going to see first. So chapter 6, we're going to see what is happening in heaven. And then after John sees what is happening in heaven, then he writes about what he sees is happening on earth. So when we go into chapter 7, we would see the equivalent of what is happening on earth. So chapter 6 is what is happening in heaven. There's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of angelic beings involved in these revelations of heaven, what is happening in heaven when the seals are being broken, revealing end time prophecy. Chapter 7, we're going to see what is going to happen on earth. So it's going to be a little bit more it's going to be a little more easy for us to connect with the information in chapter 7, because that is what is going to be happening on earth, and maybe we might be a part of what is happening during that time, right? So the first seal is about to be broken, and it is broken. It is open. And the first seal, I want you to write this down. The first seal is the Antichrist. All right. Now, it doesn't mean that the white horse is specifically the Antichrist leaving heaven to come to earth. But what it represents is the horseman releasing the apocalypse, so to speak. This is the first horseman, the white horseman, releasing this apocalypse of the beginning of the tribulation. So when the first seal is broken in heaven, this is the beginning of the tribulation period. Now we know that the tribulation period is to be lasting 7 years. Okay, so the tribulation period is a period of 7 years. One prophetic week is equal to 7 days, and one prophetic day is equal to 1 year. So that's how we have 7 years, right? So when the first seal is broken, this is the beginning of the reign of the Antichrist. The Antichrist is going to take up rulership on earth, and he's going to do that from a specific place, from the temple in Jerusalem, right? So he's going to be seated in the temple, and we see Jesus speaking about this. We see Paul as well speaking about this, that when you see the abomination of desolation standing in that holy place, standing in the temple, know that the beginning of the tribulation period has begun. So verse 2, it says, "And I look, and behold, a white horse." Now, why use a white horse to represent the Antichrist? Some would say, well, this white horse is actually speaking about Jesus. No, it can't be Jesus, because for one, Jesus is the one opening the seal, and this isn't as yet when Jesus returns. We see later on in the book of Revelation that Jesus is returning on a white horse. But this first white horse, who sat and had a bow and a crown was given to him, represents the Antichrist, because the Antichrist tries to mimic Christ. And this is why we have a white horse, because he is going to come, the Antichrist is going to come like a shining knight on a white horse to save the world, right? And we know this is the Antichrist because look at what he does. He went out conquering and to conquer. So he's going to come and take rulership of the entire world. And what he's going to do is he's going to cause peace. He's going to solve some of the major world problems, especially the war that is going on right now in the eastern part of our world, which is between the nation of Israel and those surrounding Islamic states. And that war is continuing to brew for centuries. And it even from Jesus' time till now, we see this war around the Israelites continuing to happen. And this war is going to be settled, or peace treaty is going to be settled by the Antichrist. So he's going to cause peace. It's going to be a time where he's going to be worshipped for how much great achievements he can do, so to speak. He's going to also perform signs and wonders and miracles. He's going to mimic what Jesus did when Jesus was on the face of the earth, and many will be deceived. That's what the Bible tells us. So the first seal represents the reign of the Antichrist on earth. This is what it is. He is now released. His time has now come. When the seal is broken, it means that now is his time, because remember, God is in control. I think we seem to forget that. We seem to forget that God is in control. And if the seal isn't broken, if Jesus Christ doesn't break the seal, the Antichrist cannot take up reign on the earth. It's not like if he has the power and authority to just rule over the earth. No, God is in control, and he allows the Antichrist to take up power and rulership over the earth to fulfill prophecy and to fulfill the plan of God to redeem humanity. Remember, I said in our last study that the entire purpose of the entire book of Revelation is not about doom and gloom and destruction, but is about the salvation of humanity, the restoration of earth into what it was meant to be, into this perfect paradise that God created it to be. All right, so the first seal is the Antichrist. He's sent out to conquer, and the representation from heaven is a white horse. When we switch over to chapter 7 and we look over to on earth, we'd see that it's the Antichrist. All right, but in heaven, this is a white horse with a bow and crown. If you have questions, you can leave it in the comments and I'll answer them for you. Right, let's go to the second seal. The second seal refers to mid-tribulation. Now remember, it is 7 years, but at the middle of the 7 years period, the Antichrist, he's going to have 3.5 years of great prosperity, great peace. But at the middle of it is when things are going to change. And then we're going to really head into this great tribulation, so to speak, where it will be, where we will see all these seals from seals 2 till seal 6 being broken, and great peril, and we're going to see what that entails. All right, but mid-tribulation, at 3.5 years after the Antichrist has taken up rulership, this is when the second seal is broken. Mid-tribulation, and the second seal is represented by a red horse with a great sword. And it says in verse 3, "When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, 'Come and see.' And another horse fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and the people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword. So this is where this war begins. And this war, like we said, is because the Antichrist, he established peace on the earth, but he is deceptive, and he makes the world to believe that this is going to be a peace that lasts forever. But only Jesus can be the one to bring that peace that lasts forever. So at the 3.5 years, the red horse, the second seal is going to be broken, mid-tribulation, and here we're going to have war like never before on the face of the earth. There will be no peace, nowhere on the earth that you can find peace. It's just going to be a time of mass murder. And we've had things like this in history. We've had World War I, we've had World War II, we've had Hitler executing the Jews. We've even had the Roman Empire destroying Jerusalem. We've had many things similar to this in terms of war, but we've had peace on earth for quite a long period of time in terms of war. However, when the second seal is broken, in the middle of the reign of the Antichrist, there will be war. There will be no peace upon the earth like never before. All right. So the Bible describes it as he who sat on the throne take peace from the earth, and that the people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword. So that is the second seal. Okay, so I hope that you are taking some notes. You're kind of catching a grasp of what these different seals are. So that's number one. We finished number two. Let's move to number three. So number one was the Antichrist, the white horse. Number two was mid-tribulation, the red horse. Number three is the black horse, right? So the third seal represents famine. Verse 5, when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, come and see. So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hands. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. And do not harm the oil and the wine. So what the black horse represents, the third seal represents great famine upon the face of the earth. Okay, so remember this second half, so to speak, is mid-tribulation. Is going to last 3.5 years. It's going to feel like a long 3.5 years, but this is what it entails in terms of the first we have war, and secondly we have famine. Okay, and you can see logically how this makes sense, because once you have war and once you have chaos, you are going to have a decrease, or for sure the economy is going to crash, and you're going to have this scarcity of food. You're going to have those that hoard food, and then it's going to be hard to even the manufacturing line, production lines, all those things are not going to be running anymore in that sense. So we're going to have this scarcity, this famine that is happening upon the earth. So while this is what heaven is like, on earth we're going to be having famine. So you're seeing on heaven this horse being released, and this horse represents the famine that the earth is going to now experience. Okay, so that's the third seal. Let's move along to the fourth seal, and the fourth seal represents death, and this is a pale horse. This represents death. Okay, so we're coming now to the end of the tribulation period. We're in that back end. We've had war, we've had famine, and now there's going to be death. And you can see, if we had war and if we haven't famine, then definitely a lot of people are going to die from starvation. They're going to die from the war and the chaos that is going on around. Okay, verse 7, it says, when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature. So far, each seal of the first four and each horse, we have a different of the 4 living creatures that is reiterating what these specific horses are about to do, or so to speak, they are just calling John's attention to the seal being broken. Okay, so we see the fourth living creature saying, come and see. And verse 8, and I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of it who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. Right? And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth, to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. So we see, like I said, if there's war, if there's famine, that is also part of that scheme of things. So in the second 3.5 years, the Great Tribulation, this pale horse will be released. Death and Hades will follow him, and he will be given authority to have power to overcome a fourth of the earth. Okay, so it's expected by calculation that a fourth of the entire earth's population would now die. Right? They would just be killed off when this fourth seal is broken. A fourth of the earth's population would die. Then we have the fifth seal. Now, the fifth seal isn't so much apocalyptic end time disaster. The fifth seal now is where the martyrs, those that were killed, right, for the sake of the gospel during the tribulation period, the martyrs now are crying out. Okay, so it says in verse 9, let's read it together. When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. So these are the Christians. These are those that are killed for the gospel's sake, for standing up for Christ, for not taking the mark of the beast. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood and those who dwell on it? Now remember, the fifth seal is still in the 3.5-year tribulation period. So Jesus has not returned as yet. The tribulation period is almost to an end. And we have now, when the fifth seal is broken, these martyrs, those who have been killed for the gospel, those who refuse the mark of the beast, they're crying out and they're saying, God, how long again till you return and you put an end to what is happening on the face of the earth? Verse 11, then a white robe was given to each of them, right? And it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer. Now remember, when we enter into heaven, we are going to be clothed in a white robe, and we are all going to be given a crown. So here we see that they are given their reward, a white robe, and they say, and God says to them, hold on, just a little bit, just have a little bit more time to go again before the tribulation period ends, and Jesus returns and he establishes the millennial reign, right? The kingdom of God on earth. So he says, wait a little while longer until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. So there were still Christians on the earth that had not been martyred. They did refuse the mark of the beast, but they were not killed as yet. They were not executed as yet. And here God is saying that there's still some more work to be done. There's still some more peril upon the face of the earth. There's still some more that are going to be martyred and join us in heaven. So we just got to hold on just a little bit longer for this to happen, and then Jesus will return. So that's the fifth seal. The sixth seal now is coming to the end of the tribulation period. This is the final great apocalyptic occurrence in the Great Tribulation, all right? And this is coming to the end of the Great Tribulation. Jesus has not returned as yet, and the sixth seal is cosmic disturbances. Now remember, we didn't have any earthquakes or anything like that as yet. We had war, we had famine, we had death, but nothing cosmic, no tsunamis, nothing to that extent in the earth, right? Here now is where the cosmic events are going to erupt, right? Verse 12, I looked when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth, and the moon became like blood. And we've seen what the moon becoming like blood looks like, because we've had some blood moons previously. And the stars of heaven fell to the earth, and this could be in reference to asteroids hitting the earth, as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind. So that's just a description of how these asteroids are just pelting down to the earth. Verse 14, then the sky receded as a scroll, and when it was rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place, and the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks and in the mountains. Now, all these mighty men, all these kings, they would have taken the mark of the beast. They would have signed allegiance with the Antichrist, and they were having the time of their life ruling over the inhabitants of the earth with the Antichrist, right? Establishing the kingdom of Satan on the earth. They sided with evil, and now they are realizing okay, with all these cosmic signs, what is happening on the earth, Jesus is about to return. The end is about to happen for them. It's about to be the end of their reign. So they're looking to hide. They're looking to run in caves. They're looking to find some space, some underground bunker to try to hide from what is about to happen, which is Jesus coming and destroying the satanic kingdom that has been established through the Antichrist on the earth. And verse 16, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him, capital H, who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. The wrath of the Lamb that they're speaking about here is the return of Jesus Christ, where he's going to destroy all those who have sided with the Antichrist, all those who are evil. Verse 17, for the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? And this is a question that is being asked. Who is able to stand? The wrath is about to come, and who will be able to stand? And now we're going to get the answer to that question, okay? We're going to get the answer to who is going to be able to stand when the day of wrath has come, when Jesus is returned. Who is going to be able to stand? We're going to get the answer to that in chapter 7. So I'm just going to pause just for a couple of seconds as we move over into chapter 7. We just finished chapter 6. These are 6 of these seals. Now, yes, we didn't see the 7th seal, and when we go into chapter 7, we're not going to see the 7th seal open as yet. The 7th seal is going to be opened in chapter 8. The 7th seal is a seal that when that seal is open, the return of Jesus Christ is what is happening with that seal being broken. So that seal being broken is the return of Jesus Christ. And that when that seal is broken, within that seal now there are 7 trumpets, and that brings a whole list of as well as events that has to happen in those 7 trumpets as Jesus is about to return. Now, when a king is returning, usually they will blow trumpets, and this is what it is. The king, Jesus, is about to return, and there are 7 trumpets, and each trumpet represents again some end time prophecy, some major disaster that is going to fall upon the face of the earth. This is what these men, these great men, are hiding from, because this is about to be the wrath of Jesus upon the face of the earth, the wrath of the Lamb, right? But there are those that can stand. Now remember, I started by telling you chapter 6 is telling us what is happening in heaven. Chapter 7, now we're going to see what is happening on earth. It's the same thing. Chapter 6 is heaven, chapter 7 is earth. So now we're going to see, in relation to what John sees is happening in heaven, what is the equivalent to that on the face of the earth, right? So let's chart chapter 7. And the beginning of chapter 7, the first thing we see is that there's going to be the mark of Jesus upon his followers. Now we know that the Antichrist tries to mimic Christ, and he puts the mark known as the mark of the beast upon his people. At the beginning of the tribulation period, Jesus as well will put the mark of Jesus upon his people. So those that are marked with the mark of Jesus, they will not, of course, receive the mark of the beast, and they will be able to stand through the tribulation period, right? Whether they die during the tribulation period or they make it to the end, they'll be able to stand against God, because they won't face the wrath of God, because they are marked with the mark of Jesus and they are loved by God. Of course, all of us are loved by God, but they have reciprocated that love as well by accepting Jesus, right? So they are those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. And the first group of people that are going to be marked, we see here, it says, after these things, I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth. Now, the 4 winds of the earth that he's speaking about here is the 4 horsemen. How do I know the 4 winds are the 4 horsemen? We go back to Zechariah. Like I said, the Bible interprets the Bible. In Zechariah sees 4 horsemen, and he asks the angel who's given him this vision, what are these 4 horsemen? And he said, these are the 4 winds, the 4 corners of the earth, and they're coming to, they are watching the 4 corners of the earth, right? So these same 4 horsemen, the 4 horses that we just spoke about, the red, the black, the white, and the pale horse, this is what the 4 winds that these angels are holding back. So this is at the beginning of the seal being broken. These 4 horses are about to be released, but this angel says, hold on just a little bit. So we know that this is just before the tribulation period starts, right? Just before the tribulation period starts, just before the Antichrist takes reign. And the wind shouted not and blew on the earth or on the sea or on any tree. So the 4 horsemen did not start their work as yet. Then I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. He's ascending from the east. Now remember, what is located in the east? Israel is located in the east, okay? And then I saw him ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. Now remember, we have the mark of the beast, we have the mark of Jesus. This is the seal of Jesus, to know that you belong to Jesus, right? And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea. The four angels, again, this is the four horsemen, right? Which we saw in chapter 6. Remember, we said chapter 6 was showing us what is happening in heaven. Chapter 7 is showing us what is happening on earth. And this angel cried and said, do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees till we have sealed the servants of our God on their, look at where it is. Where do they receive the seal? On their forehead. Where does the Antichrist put the mark of the beast? On their forehead and on their forearm. So he's always trying to mimic God. He's always trying to mimic Jesus and be like Christ. So at the beginning, just before the tribulation start, those that are followers of God, accepted Jesus Christ, they would be marked with this seal, okay? And there's a specific number of people that he sees being marked with this seal on their foreheads. Verse 4, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel were sealed. So this number has been a number that has been debated. 144,000. Those that have the Jehovah's Witness faith that say that this 144,000 refers to specific chosen people out of the Jehovah's Witness faith. Some say the 144,000 refer to the martyrs that was killed, right? But it is clear to see here. Remember, this is not hidden in any prophetic literature. This is just plainly written what is happening on the earth. And it says clearly that this 144,000 persons are from the tribe of Israel. Right? So these are 144,000 people that are alive just before the tribulation period starts. They are from the 12 tribes of Israel, and they would receive this seal. So we're talking about how much we're looking at? We're looking at 12,000 from each tribe, right? 12 by 12 is 144, 12,000 from each tribe. I hope I got that maths correct. But actually in the next verse 5, you would see they say each tribe how many are marked, and it's an equivalent breakdown. So it's just 144,000 divided by 12, and each tribe, this amount of people are marked from each tribe who have chosen to be followers of Jesus. Now, it's an exact number, which means that God knows prophetically exactly how many of each tribe of Israel would accept him. We know that currently in Judaism, they have rejected Jesus Christ. There are very few followers of Jesus in Israel that are Jews, so possibly even less than 144,000 people of Jewish background are Christians right now. But by the time the tribulation period reaches, there will be 144,000 Christians, 144 Judeo-Christians, right? Jews that are Christians, that believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. So they are marked. That's what we see happening on earth. And then now we see again in verse 9. So we've skipped a couple of verses, but those verses are just a breakdown of each tribe and the 12,000 for each tribe. Verse 9 now it says, after these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all the nation, tribes, peoples, and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, with palm branches in their hands. Wow. Who is he speaking about? He's speaking about not Israelites anymore, not Jewish people anymore. Remember, we had 144,000 of the Jews, but he's speaking about all of mankind. He's speaking about you and I, all of us that have accepted Jesus, and now we have a place in heaven. But I want you to pay close attention to this, okay? He says, after these things, so after the sixth seal, this is after coming to the end of the tribulation period. After this, he sees a great multitude which no one could number. There's so many Christians of all the nations, all the tribes, all the peoples, all the tongues, standing before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, with palm branches in their hands. Now, are these those people that have been raptured from the earth at the beginning or before the beginning of the tribulation period? So there are people that believe in the rapture, where they believe that before the tribulation period starts, all the Christians will be taken out of the earth. Christ he's not coming back in physical form, but they will be raptured or pulled out of the earth, meet Christ in the air, and they will go to heaven. Is this these people that Revelation chapter 7 and verse 9 is speaking about? And the answer to that is no, it's not. Who these people are, look at what it says. Then one of the elders answered, saying to me, who are these, arrayed in white robes? Where did they come from? And I said to him, sir, do you know? Because John doesn't know. He doesn't know who these people are, right? And he said to me, these are the ones who came out of the great, what is that? The Great Tribulation. So all these people are, yes, Christians who go through the tribulation period. And this is important because the teaching of the rapture, pre-tribulation rapture, that before the tribulation period occurs, that all the Christians will be removed from the earth. I have bad news for you. It is not found in the book of Revelation. Nowhere in the book of Revelation is it found. As a matter of fact, here it clearly says that the Christians will go through the tribulation period. And then, because John sees them, a great multitude of them, he sees them now in heaven. Look at what it says. So he said to me, these are the one who came out of the great tribulation, and I washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Verse 15, therefore they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne will dwell among them. They shall neither hunger anymore, nor thirst anymore. The sun shall not strike them, nor any heat. For the Lamb who is in the midst of the throne will shepherd them and lead them to the living fountains of water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eye. Here he's speaking about the promise of God for you and I to be with God for the rest of eternity. We're going to get some more into what that looks like in the latter half of the book of Revelation when we speak about the new heaven, the new earth, and the new Jerusalem. But at this point in time, what he sees here is all of us in heaven, those that have died during the tribulation time and those who have made it out of the tribulation. Remember, Paul says that at the end of the tribulation, when Jesus returns, those who are dead in Christ will rise first, and those that are alive will meet him in the air. This is what he's speaking about here. At the end of the tribulation period, the rapture is not a doctrine that is found in the Bible. Pre-tribulation rapture is not found in the Bible. Revelation, the entire book of Revelation, you can read through the entire book. You will not see anywhere that they speak about a number of people or a group of people that is removed from the earth before the tribulation period starts. We just saw the 7 seals. We saw the first seal being broken and the Antichrist being set up. We've seen up to the 6th seal just before Jesus returns. And we see here that all the Christians that make it out of the tribulation period, dead or alive, they are now in heaven, right? They made it out of the tribulation period. Now, some people will say, well, these are tribulation saints, right? People who believe in the rapture, they will say these are tribulation saints. These are people that did not make it in the rapture, but they remained on the earth. And at the end of the tribulation period, because they did not receive the mark of the beast, they now are tribulation saints and they will be entering into heaven. Now, the only problem with that is if you claim these people to be tribulation saints, then you need to find somewhere in Revelation or in any part of the Bible that references pre-tribulation saints or raptured saints being in heaven. We don't see that. We've seen a lot of things happening in the book of Revelation thus far. We've seen the 24 elders seated on the thrones, referring to the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 disciples. We've seen the martyrs who've been killed for the gospel's sake. They are under the altar of God because they've been sacrificed, right? This is why it is represented under the altar of God. We've seen the 144,000 Israelites that are marked. And now here we see all of the Christians that make it through the tribulation period, but we don't see anywhere any reference of pre-tribulation or raptured Christians. Even Jesus does not speak about the rapture, pre-tribulation rapture. If you look at Matthew chapter 24, where Jesus answers the question that his disciples ask about what will happen and tell us the end of times, he speaks about the Antichrist, he speaks about the great tribulation period, and he speaks about his return. And at his return, we will meet him in the air. We'll be taken up, we'll meet him in the air. And this is the post-tribulation saints. These are those that make it through the great tribulation. All right. And I did a teaching previous to this speaking about why I no longer believe in the rapture, because there isn't any biblical support for it. It is a man-made doctrine that revolves around around the Schofield Bible and was created just over 100 years ago. It isn't biblical. It isn't a belief that is held by most of those in the Middle East. It's really a Western culture, mostly in America and London, England, in the UK, and, well, Trinidad, we kind of adopt those cultures. They are the ones that have this man-made doctrine that has been perpetuated through their teachings, but it is not a biblical doctrine. You won't find in the book of Revelation. If you speak to somebody that believe in pre-tribulation rapture, they will say, well, you don't see the word church mentioned during the tribulation period. So that means that the church is raptured, right? That is a huge assumption, a big leap. That is reading completely outside of the text and putting something into it that does not exist. So going back to this point here, no escape for the Christians. Simply, I know it sounds a little bit doom and gloom, but what it means is that for those who are trying to who believe for some reason they are going to be spared from the tribulation period, they're going to be raptured out of it. That is not true. There is no escape in that sense where you are not going to face the tribulation period if you are alive during that time. You need to be prepared to not escape. You need to be prepared to endure. Okay, that is the call. You need to be prepared to endure. And if you have an escape mentalism, if you have an escape mentality where you believe that before the Antichrist takes rulership, you are just going to escape, you're just going to vanish from the face of the earth, and you're no longer going to be on earth, but you're going to be in heaven, which is not found in the Bible, is not biblical. You are not going to be prepared to endure the tribulation period. This is the call that Jesus has called us to endure the tribulation period. He says that those who remain till the end, they will be now taken up. They will meet Christ in the air, and they will join Christ in the millennial reign. So there is no escape. John sees the same thing. He sees all of us. We've made it through the tribulation period because we were prepared. For one, we were prepared mentally to know that we have to go through this tribulation period. We refused the mark of the beast, and we made it through this tribulation period. And now John sees us in heaven, all the people of all the tongues and of every nation. Okay? Very important information. I hope that if I stirred up more questions because this is the first time you're hearing that pre-tribulation rapture is not biblical, what I'll do for you is I will leave a link in the description for that teaching we did on the rapture. So you can go through that again. And that teaching goes through from Matthew and it covers Daniel, the Old Testament. It covers 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, which are the major scriptures that people use out of context to preach the rapture. That study covers all of that, explaining it more thoroughly. I just touched on it because we taught it already. So if you want a more in-depth teaching on that, I'll leave it in the description. You can click on it and you can watch that. And if you have questions to follow up from there, you can contact me personally, or you can comment it right here in this stream, and I will respond to those questions. So that brings us to the end of chapter 6 and chapter 7. We had a lot of important information. We saw 6 seals being broken. We saw what it looked like in heaven. We saw what it looked like upon the face of the earth. When we move into next week, we are going to look at chapter 8, where the 7th seal is broken. And in the 7th seal now, there are 7 trumpets. And each trumpet, just like the 6 seals that we just saw, are some horrific things. There aren't things that we would like, but there are things that has to happen for the salvation and the restoration of this world. So if you have questions, you can comment, you can reach out to me. I will respond to them. If you have some criticism, if you have some correction as well, hey, I would love to have that discussion with you. I am open for discussion. And I want you to study up on chapters 8 and moving forward into the rest of the book of Revelation. I know the book of Revelation seems a little bit confusing, but the Holy Spirit has been helping us through this process of understanding what the book of Revelation is about. And the Holy Spirit is revealing the book of Revelation to us. So we're getting revelation about the book of Revelation from the Holy Spirit. And I'm so happy that we are doing this, because right now, the time that we live in, we have so much false doctrines, false teachings that are going around. Jesus speaks about this. In the end times, there'll be many false teachers. There's so many misconceptions when it comes to the end times, when it comes to what the book of Revelation means. And we need to have some solid truth on this, solid doctrine on this, solid teachings on this. So this is the purpose why we're going through the book of Revelation. And I hope that it is helping you right now to understand what is to come, so that you aren't in a state of panic and fear, so that you know that the COVID-19 vaccine is not the mark of the beast. Okay, the system, yes, of buying and selling without the mark of the beast in relations to vaccinate and operate is a system that will be implemented by the Antichrist when he takes up reign. But the Antichrist taking up reign is dependent on the first seal being broken, and the first seal has not been broken as yet. And when the Antichrist takes up reign, is then he will issue the mark of the beast. So the Antichrist has not taken up reign. Therefore, the mark of the beast is not the vaccine, because the mark of the beast has not been implemented. The Antichrist has to take reign first. The first seal has to be broken for him to take up reign, and then we would have the mark of the beast being implemented. And we're going to actually see some more on the mark of the beast as we go further into the book of Revelation. We're also going to see what are going to happen to the people that took the mark of the beast. And that's an interesting study. You're going to want to see that for sure. So if you're viewing this at day, enjoy the rest of the day. If you're viewing at night, enjoy the rest of the night. If you didn't do this yet, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, and I'll see you again next Monday as we continue our Bible study in the book of Revelation.